The Golgappa girl.
That
So what?
is obnoxious. Acha, okay, fine, that's true.
Does anyone even care that we're lying? Ridiculous.
Today
Uh,
I'm not in the car. That's a good thing.
yes, that's
Yeah.
a very good thing to
And what
notice.
about that fancy location you wear all these days? Something
Which
at the
fancy
back,
location?
some very, very fancy
Her
location.
locations are pretty.
Back.
Bungalows. That's where
Her
she's
locations
Yeah.
at.
are pretty normal and pedestrian.
Pedestrian,
But
literally, because I'm in the car. Suhel, haha, very funny.
Come on, start at 7 p.m.
Okay. We're ready. We're ready. It's a good time to start. Very, very exciting Sunday this morning. The Rajiv Gandhi
Morning, you're
Foundation,
sounding like Rahul Gandhi.
FCRA. I heard he's a nice person. That's what everyone says, but not a very
yeah,
good politician. So it's okay. But we're starting with the FCRA license that has been cancelled for the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. And that's a big one because this is a foundation that is directly controlled by the three Gandhis. They're all on the board. They're all trustees. They're all executive committee members. It also has the former Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, on the board, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Chidambaram. So a bunch of heavyweights on this board, and this FCRA cancellation is something that has been expected for a while, and we'll get into the details of it. And coming on the back of a couple of things, one is, of course, the National Advisory Council files that were put out into the public domain, which seem to indicate that decisions were being prompted by Mrs. Sonia Gandhi at the very least, if not more, or that just seems to be what those files and those signings on those files indicate. So we'll discuss that as well, and let's just dive right into it. Suhel said, how familiar are you with the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation? Because it is an NGO, but I'm really not quite sure. Apart from a few scholarships, I'm not really sure what kind of work they do in terms of
Hmm.
public outreach and social service.
Tell me.
Suhail has the call. So let's go to Pallavi.
No, I'll tell you. The
You
thing
tell.
is, uh, NGO or not NGO, all foundations which have political patronage or politicians at the helm, when the politicians are in power, obviously they benefit. Suppose I pick up the phone and ask a company for donation. The company is not going to say, no, I'm not going to give you any money. The company will obviously give you money. If you see the kind of people who have, contributed, you will imagine that it's true. A, B, the fact that you have a sitting prime minister who was then the sitting prime minister as a member of the foundation, and you have the entire
Yeah.
family as trustees on both the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation and the Rajiv Gandhi Charitable Trust. I mean, you're inviting trouble because even if there is no quid pro quo, even if there is nothing, people will snipe, as people have sniped today. That if you see, one of the partner donors is the Embassy of the People's Republic of China, which contributed in those days $300,000. So people are going to ask. You cannot be
Yeah.
actually running the country and then be part of a foundation. Now, is this only unique to Congress? No. We have in this government, you have India Foundation, you have Vivekanand Foundation, you have 100 things. Someone's son, someone's daughter is on it. But the point I'm making is that you're inviting trouble. Also, what used to happen, and I think Sandip mentioned in a tweet of his, you were offered, and who would refuse? You were offered prime government land to set up offices for these foundations. These foundations would then continue endlessly on that government land, and you and I could do nothing about it. But here's my point. My point is, while you must attack the Congress if you wish on ethical, legal, improprietary grounds, you must also investigate the foundations that have come up now from 2014 onwards. Because Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. You cannot have one rule for the goose while the gander is about to be eaten. And I think that's the reality that we must face. But these NGOs, I'm not for a moment saying because we don't have legal proof and we shouldn't be irresponsible. From one of the pages that I saw, tri-wheelers had been distributed and tri-wheelers had been given. So I don't know who those tri-wheelers have been given to. Now, a lot of people say the finances were not in order. That needs to be investigated. And see, Advaita, I've said this on your program again and again. I have no issues with the CBI and the ED investigating people, even if it is out of political vendetta. At least they are investigating and they're catching people. I keep giving the example of the 73 crores found in Parthacharya, the West Bengal minister's house. The ED didn't plant 73 crores. It was found. So I'm glad. I don't care whether it's political vendetta or not. But at least someone is cleaning the stables. And if you clean the stables and you find that horses didn't even exist while you build for their hay, there is problems. I mean, there are problems. You're inviting trouble. But as I said, and I will end, it has to be for all. It cannot be selective. The moment it is selective, it will be seen as vendetta and reprisals. If it is uniform, good. Now, a lot of people told me, oh, but CPR was raided. People are asking for the price of samosas and how many samosas did you feed and all. Now, I don't want to get into that. The point is, if you run an honest organization, you don't need to worry. If you don't, you need to worry. Simple.
Sandeep, the land on which the RGF Foundation office stands was supposed to be, was actually granted for the Congress headquarters, which is, of course, at Akbar Road. And now that is also coming up along with this FCRA license cancellation, that this land was not meant for this NGO. What do you have to say about that?
See, that fact was known. Again, one has to be very careful about what you speak about the Congress nowadays, because they'll otherwise threaten you with filing a suit. And Suhel at least has friends among the top lawyers in Delhi. I have none who can appear for him. So I have to be doubly cautious. So it was known that that land was originally, all these political parties, they had allocated lands for them to build up their headquarters. So similarly, this land was apparently earmarked for Congress. But then after Indira Gandhi's death, or Rajiv Gandhi's death, I forget which one, they decided that it's unlucky to have a headquarters there. So that was apparently the excuse given. And they decided to build the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. But the interesting thing is, just like in AJL, National Herald, where a lot of congressmen had, people had contributed money. Apparently, there was also, crowdfunding which went in to building that Congress headquarters.
Correct. One day salary.
One day salary and things like that. So there was this whole issue about, where you see something which was for the larger party got appropriated by one, you may not say the family, but interest of the related to the family and to a member of the family. So that kind of merging of interest tend to happen, just like JLN has now become AJL has now become just a family entity, whereas initially it was seen to be a national institution. So that change happened. Now, thereafter, the bigger questions where I have a slight difference of opinion with Suhel, it's all very fine to say that everybody needs to be investigated. Surely, if things are wrong, people need to be investigated. But I think what we're getting in here is some blatant, disregard of procedure. I'm not even talking of law. That is what was happening in the country earlier when you thought nothing is going to happen. Nobody is going to question. So I don't know whether the then Prime Minister was on the board of RGF or not. But if he was, then I would think a clear conflict of interest in the government donating 100 crores, if it did, from again by reports which we are seeing from the Prime Minister's Relief Fund, into to RGF, because that's a conflict of interest. You are on the one hand heading that particular fund, and then you're donating to another institution where you are there, or even otherwise, what is the rationale for it? Or there are a whole lot of PSUs who apparently donated there. That is what was coming through. So these are not just, a question of, as Suhel said, Suhel could be we know about the Salman Khurshid think he was talking about the three-wheelers. I was remembering that there were some ambulances and other things. So fine, you're a politician, you have a trust, and others may oblige you if provided they think it's a good cause, unless they have been coerced into putting money in there, which also happens. So we are not suggesting any of that. But here, that was the fact. But I think the real material thing will be if there were actually procedural lapses. And FCRA is not, an easy law. I can tell you, I have handled CSR funds of small organizations or organizations where you have to be extremely, extremely careful about how you account for things. Like you may be getting, let's say, I may be working for a multinational company, and my parent company may genuinely donate some money for a project in India. And if I route it through that particular trust, one has to be very, very cautious about it. And it's not the registration part of it. If your registration lapses and you don't bother to renew the legislation, it is far worse than your registration lapsing in, say, an income tax, what they call the exemption registration. There you say, okay, I didn't have it, I give back the income tax or whatever you can. But FCRA, if you're violating that, and we know for a fact, and I'm not suggesting, I repeat, for RGF it is the case, there are FCRA loopholes have been used by several, NGOs or so-called non-profits to get funds from outside. And we also know, if you read the seminal book of Vikram Sood, the former RNAW chief, and these are all documented, how the Americans have used, front-ended so many NGOs across the world, not only to further their agenda or, build a narrative or control the narrative, but sometimes even for regime change. So these are nothing new. And so if a government today is being particular, you can't fault it. To say that, okay, why aren't they going and investigating India Foundation or Vivekananda Foundation, I think that will be a false equivalence. First of all, India Foundation, Vivekananda Foundation are not pursuing any particular individual's agenda. It is not even saying
one minute. But I just want to say, my comment on those foundations was germane to political patronage.
Yeah, I agree with you.
नो बिजनेस मेरे बाप का क्या है यार, तुम विवेकानंद फाउंडेशन शुरू करो, पल्लवी फाउंडेशन शुरू करो, संदीप फाउंडेशन शुरू करो. आई एम सेइंग बी प्रिपेयर्ड. When you launch a war, be prepared for retaliation. But knowing these guys, they will be far better prepared. But let me tell you, let's not beat around the bush. Any government that comes to power will support people who they believe will follow or toe their line or pursue their agenda. But where the prime minister, who runs and who controls the highest executive office in the country, when he or she lends his or her name to that foundation, then you need to worry. When the chairperson of the National Advisory Council lends his or her name to that, then you need to worry. Because even if there is no quid pro quo, the fear of reprisal is so great amongst the donors that they will give the money. So it's nothing short of holding a gun to your head. So my view is very clinical. Mr. Modi, as Prime Minister, doesn't sit as the executive trustee or whatever any of these foundations. Neither does Mr. Shah, nor do any of the ministers. Fine. Which I'm perfectly fine with. But when you have the sitting Prime Minister of India sitting as a trustee of the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, it doesn't look right. I'm not imputing
Congress
I'll just come in
I agree
one
with what
point,
Suhel is saying.
Advaita,
You don't
before
have the prime minister on any of these foundations. But see, I know this for a fact. That
Pallavi, just 1 minute. Pallavi, just 1 minute.
You've
Let's
taken
lose
like
the
10
thread.
minutes. Yeah, but
No, 1 minute, because we started with this preparation bit of it. And there I must add, who first spoke about this, I also tweeted about it. In 2015, Kumi Kapoor tweeted that RGF was under the scanner. And Suhel and I would know, and all of us would know who was Kumi Kapoor's source. Would have been Kumi Kapoor's source in 2015. The gentleman was very much around. If they waited from 2015 to 2022, partly it would have been political consideration, partly it would have been also this whole preparation issue.
Absolutely.
Before they actually,
You know,
I
like,
must
I
beg
tell you this
leave
much
of
about the
all of
RGF.
you. It's our first Diwali in the sense with this thing with a lot of love and affection. God bless you. Happy Diwali. Be nice, be safe, and burst as many crackers. Because I'm tired of being told what to do in the wake of wokeism. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata ki Jai, Jai Ho.
What are
And
you
going
doing,
to
Suhel? I don't know
You
what he's doing.
I have to
You're
go.
wait. It's only 7:15.
Yeah, my
Okay.
wife is summoning me, and God bless you.
Pallavi. Okay, let's
So,
get to
so
you.
I tell you the thing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
RGF. So I know that many of us who, and I'm not going to take names here, but one name which certainly stands out is about Priyanka Gandhi Vatra. So there was a time when you want to meet her, you would actually have to go to RGF to meet her. So she used to hold all the meetings with us. There were many leaders who are a part of the Rahul Gandhi coterie who were a part of his office. And if you wanted to meet them, you would not meet them at 10 Tuklak Lane or at the AICC headquarters. I remember I met two of them at the RGF's reception or in one of the lobbies. So it got that political. So that difference between the party and the functioning of a so-called NGO, that was completely blurred. And that is where one has a problem with. One, I agree with what Suhel was saying is that you don't have the president prime minister on any of these NGOs because you have to maintain that, that distance, that Lakshman Rekha must be etched, and which I think at least the prime minister is maintaining that. Second, you had a Chidambaram. He's the finance minister at that point of time. He's also one of the trustees. In fact, many of the letters, in fact, that audit statements, if you go on the website, it's also signed by Sonia Gandhi. It is also signed by Chidambaram. Now, he was the finance minister. Now, surely when he's a finance minister, someone wants money. Who's going to say no to him when he's a finance minister, right? And he's a trustee. So that's one. And second, when these revelations start coming out that the Chinese embassy was also donating money and so on and so forth, what does it do to Rahul Gandhi's Lal Aag Dikhana to the government on the whole China's issue that, he often accuses the government
Yeah.
of going soft on China. And third is this is all happening on a day like today where the Bharat Jodo Yatra is ending in Karnataka and you're going to have Mr. Kharge taking charge on a Wednesday, Rahul Gandhi coming to Delhi for that. That Karnataka leg is over. So, and they move on to Telangana. But I think Karnataka is something which they are hoping the Yatra works for them. Now, this story which comes out today of the FCRA, ban and all, so on and so forth, what does it then do to Rahul Gandhi's politics, one, over China, and second is a larger Gandhi connection with the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation?
Hmm, hmm. No, that's an important point, most certainly. That when you are trying to take on the government on China, and then it's revealed that you've accepted funds from the CCP for the foundation, that does put you in a bit of an awkward situation, no doubt about that. Sandip, speaking of this conflict of interest that Pallavi just pointed out, Nirmala Sitharaman, who was on I think, the board of the India Foundation, resigned when she became the minister, like prior to becoming the minister, as did even Mr. Sinha when he was MOS Finance in the first term of the NDA from 2014 onwards. So they did, but in this case, you have Mr. Chidambaram, who was the finance minister and was also the trustee of this foundation at the same time.
See, Pallavi, Advaita, those are matters of propriety. There is a matters of propriety, there are matters of procedure, there are matters of legality. Okay, matters of propriety, people may defend in various ways. You could be a family trustee, but you might say that I'm there only as a trustee. It's run by people differently, independently, or whatever it is. So the propriety matter is a matter of debate. People can say, so what? It's a very good cause. I'm part of the trust, so big deal. Or, so that is a separate debatable issue. Although optics wise, you can always raise these questions. Number two is the procedural part. If there has been procedural issues, like there are so many things which Congress and others keep raising about the current government, be it about the PM Cares Fund.
Yeah.
There is so much of talk about the PM Cares Fund, and here I see the equivalence coming in, because PM,
Mm.
one of the grudges which people say about the PM Cares Fund, which Congress had, was the Congress president was not an ex officio member of the PM Cares Fund, just as he or she is supposed to be in the PM Relief Fund. Okay, that was part of the uh, I think the constitution of that. And since it is outside that purview, it was being said that this is a money which is being used by BJP or Narendra Modi for their own purposes. Now, they have diluted it a lot with getting now independent trustees like people of impeccable credentials like Ratan Tata and even Naran Moti's wife as an advisor or things like that. So they are trying to take care of that part. Here, I think RGF was always treated as a very, very private family entity. And that's
Mm.
why the trustees and everybody were handpicked. So it is people like Suman Dubey, and now you see other people who are very close to the family politically or otherwise. They are the people who are handpicked into being the trustees of this. So this was very, very private domain, which was beyond scrutiny by anybody. But then, when these kind of donations, etc., happen from the government side or government PSUs, obviously questions would be raised. But finally, I think none of these will stick unless there are legality issues. And people like Home Ministry or ED, anybody getting into the act, it can only be not a matter of conjecture or a matter of what you call associations like these. It has to be on definitive legality, and that legality, to my mind, cannot be, something which is minor procedural lapse. Like, okay, you are supposed to renew it by 25th, it has happened 1 month
Yeah.
later, or you missed it 1 year or something. It has to be some sustained and
Mm.
serious lapses, both in terms of the legality of registration, etc., and in terms of how funds have come or how funds have been accounted, not accounted of the rest. And that is where the key will lie. And if the
But
government
Sandip,
really,
when they take up this, like I was watching Sambit Patra's press conference,
right,
and the BJP is really diving into the list of donors. They've pointed out Mehul Choksi, they've pointed out Rana Kapoor, they've Zakir Nayak, now, and of course the CCP, which Pallavi just mentioned. Now, this is not the kind of people you want donating. This kind of raises a whole bunch of questions on its own.
so that is where the optics and the perception issue, because you see, public, I think they have been playing it very cleverly. So while Sambit Patra says that we are not privy to what a Home Ministry or ED is doing, we can only go by what is in the public domain. So they will play this public perception of the optics side, because the public ultimately will not understand if they say there was so much donation received which was not accounted for, or such something happened, they did not file the return on time, that for the public that may not make much sense. But when you associate with this, just like Congress keeps on associating all the time Narendra Modi's pictures with a Nirav Modi or Mehul Choksi and the others, and tries to say, see, he is a Soot Boot Ka Sarkar, and therefore he is mixing with them. So these are counterpoints which will come. So they are doing a two-pronged attack, so to speak,
But
to
in the case
tackle
of
the
this whole
question.
Soot Boot Ka Sarkar and linking Narendra Modi with Nirav Modi, somehow it doesn't seem to be sticking. And I think apart from the imaging of the Prime Minister, I think it also doesn't stick because it sticks more to a Congress, even if they don't do anything. I mean, there is a
Yeah.
perception about the Congress party which has started building up, which has been building up. To a certain extent, the BJP has contributed to it, but I think largely they themselves have added on to it. I mean, through the whole day, I tried to get a comment out of the Congress party. And every time I would send them an SMS, like, do you want to say something about this FCRA? They would send me back a video of Rahul Gandhi, during the Bharat Jodo Yatra. What they were trying to tell me was that this FCRA thing has come up because his Bharat Jodo Yatra is successful. And people are not going to be accepting this argument. I mean, the two are two different things. I mean, the Bharat Jodo Yatra, yes, it's gathering eyeballs and crowd and all of that. at least in Karnataka. I'm going to see the next phase becomes more challenging, really, Advaita. But to say that there's a link between the two, and if Modi can do it, why not us kind of do it? This kind of an argument is not being bought by the people at all.
But I mean, they're going to have to, address this. I don't see how they will not address this, because
Well, I mean, the
otherwise,
Congress party's style is very different, I mean, that's Sandip said. Either they are going to call us trolls, they will call us Godi, or they will say, it's an attempt to divert the Bharat Jodo Yatra. So they, I think, have decided as a part of their strategy to selectively respond. Where it's convenient for them to respond, they'll respond. I mean, it's fair enough. I guess that's a political party's call. They also feel that we face it so much, we need to call out the so-called Godi media. And, so, I mean, I know...
Right now, they are on a high. Right now, they're on a great high.
No, and also, I mean, Jairam's strategy is very simple. Jairam, Pawan Khera, Supriya Srinath, that they're going to be aggressive. And mind you, some channels have goofed up. Some journos have goofed up. I mean, we also know about this whole Tavleen Singh. She went on and on about Dr. Baru, and Dr. Baru clarified by saying, I never said it was a violation of the Official Secrets Act. I mean, the two are two different things, to say that the Prime Minister was under direction coming in from the Congress party is one, and to say the files were carried there, a violation of official secrets, that is different. I think Congress has taken a thing, and I won't be surprised if they don't respond to this whole FCRA thing, or they're going to call it political witch hunt.
No, that would be a convenient. That would be a convenient way to do it.
That's what they're going to do.
If they don't have much to defend, they would. But then BJP also is not going to let go so easily.
Yeah.
Because as I said, if they took their time from 2015 to now, and from what some of the people tell me that there was work going through all this while, so they would not have come unprepared. So what I am finding a pattern in all these so-called raids or cancellations, you see, so far, whatever has happened, whether you talk of amnesty, whether you talk of what's been happening against either a Trinamool or a Shiv Sena or AAP people, none of them are, at least till today, fizzling out. They are stopping at certain point and not going for the final kill. Okay, so whereas Arvind Kejriwal would think Manish Sisodia will get arrested, I, for one, never believe that he'll get arrested, because that would be falling into that trap. But they are raising the ante, raising the heat, and stopping them. So you found that the interrogations of Rahul and Sonia happened. After that, nothing has happened. Similarly, in West Bengal, there's a lull now, but it doesn't mean the whole thing is quieted down. They will again ratchet it up at an appropriate time.
Yeah, correct.
Pallavi, heading into 2024, how much of this are you think is going to pick up tempo? I mean, it's one of the reasons why there isn't an opposition that's ready to stand up today is because they're compromised in so many ways, and they're just not able to get it together because something or the other keeps popping up, which compromises their biggest leaders across parties.
Yeah, but I think now Kharge will have to deal with a lot of it, because he is the president and he's going to be the face of it. And how much of a firefighting can he really do, and how is it too aggressive? I don't know. Maybe, when you are no longer president, you don't have to be the face, defend yourself, make it easier, or someone who's not a Gandhi family member and is now the party president and now will have to defend you. Does that become easier? But as I said, I mean, this whole my suspicion is that till December, Rahul Gandhi is going to be doing his Bharat Jodo Yatra. There's also this plan that he's going to take a break, and again next year he's going to do another leg of Bharat Jodo Yatra in those areas where he's not going. And these kind of things will keep coming up during the Bharat Jodo Yatra. So on one hand, Yatra may gather eyeballs like it is in Karnataka, Kerala, which it has. But on the other hand, is always going to be overshadowed by these kind of incidents taking place. And it's not like, I know we can keep on talking about political witch hunt. We can keep on talking about the timing, which every journalist talks about. But the fact remains is that if you have done nothing wrong and if everything is above board, you really have nothing to worry about, or you don't have anything to kind of need defend. I mean, the FCR, you just have to go to a website, Advaita, just go to our Rajiv Gandhi Foundation website, look at the audit statements, and it becomes so clear that people who should have stayed away from it were actually very much involved in it. They are signing. I saw one of our viewers, in fact, ask this question to Sandip, very interesting, because he says that political parties and politicians are, in any case, not supposed to get funds according to the FCRA. And yeah, so there is this Desi spy master who's asking this question of Sandeep. See, this is exactly what the people are going to be thinking. They are not going to understand the difference between, oh, RGF is just an NGO, it's got nothing to do with the politicians. They'll say that, yeah, politicians, Gandhi family members were a part of it. First of all, it's called the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. Second, Sonia Gandhi is a trustee. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra sits in that office. She has those meetings. No one is going to buy that theory that the politicians over here, in this case, the Gandhis, actually did not violate FCRA. They asked for funds. And, as Suhel was rightly pointing out, I mean, if you are a sitting finance minister and a trustee, I don't think you need to pick up the phone and ask for funds. Very often people come up to you and give you funds because they want something else in lieu of it.
Or they just want access. It's opening the door.
Access, yeah.
Pallavi, only difference which you are saying about Kharge point is where I'm getting at. And there also there is a strategy. All these things which are being picked up are not Congress issues. These are related to the 10 Janpath issues. So here, every time the Congress comes forward to defend it, they will again be exposing this nexus, and that is where they're also having an issue within the party. That when somebody else, Rahul Gandhi is just an MP, when another MP, without taking names, if he is called before ED, there is nobody rallying behind him or her. But there's another MP who's been called to ED and the entire party is rallying behind that person. So
yeah, I never saw it for Chidambaram's. I mean, both PC as well as Karti went to ED. I was there when Chidambaram was arrested outside his Jorbag residence. It was just after a press conference in AICC. I'm telling you, there were only 10 or 12 planted supporters, firecrackers, thoda sa banner. Even Chidambaram would have been surprised where did they turn up from. And inside was Sibbal and Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Chidambaram sits in the car and goes away. There was no one from the party. There should have been someone from the party there inside, or even at the press conference which Chidambaram held before he actually got arrested. Is that your Jeeves behind you, Sandip, who's preparing an exotic meal, the one you keep on tweeting about?
He is my Jeeves, but he is not preparing anything, but he is kind of moving around like a ghost in the background.
I was reading this article, and this is like a little more of a gupshup question. But they were saying that there are actually some congressmen who are quite resentful, some leaders, of the fact that they gave up one day's salary for the building of the Congress headquarters, and what came up instead on the land was this foundation office. So
Motilal Vora was a treasurer. Motilal Vora was a treasurer. Half of them did not even give up their salary for one day. They also tell us कि हम क्यों दे वैसे ही कुछ नहीं मिलता पार्टी से हम क्यों दे एक दिन का salary. So they never gave up. Not only that. Yeah, many of them. I would say, and this is something which Motilal Vora said it on record later on also, and he complained. In fact, he wrote a second letter of reminder that some people are not paying. But the saddest part of it is that, those workers who are there, I mean, the peons and all that, unke salary se bhi they took a small cut. Saying this is your so-called voluntary
Advaita, all these so-called crowdfunding, these are a sham. Okay, that's a way, who knows whether
Bayer is the one which is now under fire.
I know, we have to get to that also. Yeah, we have to get
So all crowdfunding which people do, they're a sham, because you cannot, especially when you're showing small amount of donations, you cannot trace it to the donor. So if you say that, 1 crore people donated 1 rupee for me, nobody can trace that, and that money can come from any source and go into your coffer. So that is the, is the age-old trick of how to fund things, make it kosher, whether to sell paintings or to have these kind of charity balls or whatever.
So now let's move on to the Wire versus Meta. I mean, I'm actually last week we discussed it a little bit, and things were still unraveling at that point of time. But since then, what has happened is, and we were confused. Like, had Wire been tricked? You know, had they been sort of taken on this trip, and basically that resulted in complete like delegitimization, or were they actually in on it? But what has happened since then is that the experts who have been quoted, like for example, the Microsoft expert, who was quoted as having verified, the emailing and the list. I don't know. It's also technical. Also, it's so confusing for most of us. But basically, he's just said that, hello, I had nothing to do with this. I never wrote this email. It's not me, and I wanted a retraction. That hasn't really come, so I'm putting this message out there. So Pallavi, what's going on like in the media space with this story? Because the Wire has always, kind of said we're the independent journalists and independent journalism, we're the voice speaking truth to power, etc., etc. Very activisty organization. So what
Yeah,
is this?
absolutely quiet. But I'm a part of this WhatsApp group. I'm not going to tell you which WhatsApp group, and they're journalists from across. I mean, they're all TV, they are, they are digital and they are print, and the print ones, especially some very senior ones. Okay, Abhishek. Abhishek, no, I am traveling, but I'm in station. So the thing is that, and it's interesting. It's really very interesting, Advaita, because today there was this whole debate about Wire and so on and so forth, and I found many of the senior journalists, especially for the print space, they were actually drawing a parallel between Op India and Wire. They're saying both of them are two extremes. Op India has an agenda to support the BJP and completely attack political parties, and Wire ka agenda is always to trash the BJP. And today they stand exposed. They're saying we have a bigger problem with a format like Wire, because Op India doesn't even pretend to be what they are. Wire is very pretentious and they're more savvy and they're very polished, but look how they stand exposed. That's one. Second is, what is going to happen is, forget Wire. They are going to be now the so-called people who claim that we are bold journalism, liberal journalism, we speak up to the powers, so to be. All of them are now going to be taken with a bit of cynicism. I saw that happening on that WhatsApp group. They were so angry, they were so upset, and I'm not going to take the name, but I did tweet about it. And Sandip did ask me who the person was, so he knows. There are journalists who very proudly flaunted that they were associated with the Wire, have removed it from their bio, from their DP. So it's so convenient, you talk about us. I mean, people like me, increasingly, others are called out. You belong to a Godi media, you belong to a Godi channel, so on and so forth. It's very unfortunate, but this is now what has happened is, thanks to the Wire messing it up completely, anyone who's actually going to be doing true journalism is always now going to be doubted, especially anyone who claims to be doing bold journalism, because people will say, yeah, you are also like that. I'm also very cynical of anyone who asks for crowdfunding. Anyone. I mean, I really do have a problem with this.
I do have a problem, and I in fact got what would you call, unfriended by some very close people, because I raised it. It's not about Wired, but about some other portals where they were doing the same kind of crowdfunding. I told that person, I have run media organizations. I know how much it costs to run, whether it's a paper or a portal. And if somebody is saying that with the 2 crore corpus, they can be managing such a huge establishment, where we know the personal expenses of certain of their top people will be more than 2 crores an annum, then they're really thinking people are daft. So there is that. See, in the case of where the only person who has really come up front, and I don't know what, I have to ask her separately, is Barkha. Barkha has said the Chamcha versus Morcha. And she has been going hammer and tongs at the Wire thing. So she has been at least openly outspoken about it. And Pallavi mentioned some of the people who are trying to now distance themselves. But Wire's problem was twofold. It's not a question of just bold journalism, which Pallavi was talking about, quote unquote bold. it's also being, taking themselves, putting themselves at a pedestal. Anything happening, not only the wire people, but people who are friends and brothers of the wire, they would take on people from overseas, offshore, for anybody criticizing there. And wire top brass are sending out tweets that you'll have omelette on your face. Just wait and see. Sid Varadarajan tweeted
I
to.
think Sandeep's connection's getting a little wobbly, so we're not able to hear you too clearly. Sandeep, you may
To
have to
know
log.
one thing. I only want to
Yeah.
know one thing is that isn't it a thumb rule of journalism that any story you do, you cross check? And I also saw the reactions to the wire mess which was happening. There were people who were actually saying that, Siddharth Varadarajan is not that kind of a journalist. He's known to cross check facts. Now, what has happened? It's so terrible. It's going to be very difficult for him to actually get back that credibility. I mean, today his statement also you saw where he gives a detailed statement on why they have to pull off their stories. I mean, it's so terrible. And the digital space stays, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, that's something which I've always been taught, that was something I remember my first day into journalism when I was being trained. And I remember I was in NDTV at that point of time. And there was someone from BBC who came down, said that don't be in a hurry to break the news. Doesn't matter if you're late. Even by a couple of seconds or a minute or two, be credible, and I'm surprised that here credibility was compromised. How could they not fact check? And how
But
could the fact checker also not fact check?
This is really not about credibility anymore. When two of their sources are saying, hello, we were not contacted. I mean, this is moving towards fabrication. It's not about getting
that's
your
even
facts
worse.
wrong, which is a lot worse.
Well, I mean, his first statement was that we found some irregularities which we needed to cross-check. And now it has emerged that there are actually interviews which are never done, statements which were never taken.
Yes.
I mean,
that's why I think it's become like, a sort of...
Someone has something to say about you, Sandip.
Yeah, my eyes. I thought everybody appreciated my eyes, and
no, clearly
when I was
not.
a kid, they did. When I was a kid, they did. Yeah, I need to take off and show that I don't fall asleep. It's just the angle of the camera. Okay. Okay. Somebody when I was a child said that what a waste of an eyes on a boy. I was very offended.
No, but I mean, where does, a lot of people, first of all, we discussed this last week also when I said, a lot of their fellow travelers, the leftists lot, especially the international left, has gone after them pretty badly. And one of the laments has been like, what does this do for opposition media? I don't know what opposition media is, but I guess in a country where we don't have a credible opposition, some in the media have taken it upon themselves to be the opposition. So what does this do for that kind of journalism now?
But individually, before Pallavi
no,
comes
but
in,
just because you need to criticize and support the government and support the opposition doesn't mean that should be seen as a justification for doing something wrong. I'm really tired of this day in and day out because I meet these kind of people, and it's not just got to do with wire. I see it in one or two channels. I see it a lot in digital. When they meet us, they have that look of scorn on their face. Oh, you work for this channel. Oh, you are a Gandhi media. Oh, you started criticizing the Congress. Oh, one particular day, I tell you what happened before we just go back to you, Sandip. I'm just going to take a couple of seconds. I tweeted two pictures.
No, thank you.
I tweeted one picture of Rahul Gandhi going to the mutt where he was wearing that dhoti. I just tweeted because sometimes the journalists you just do that. No one had a problem. 3 hours later, next day, when I tweeted a picture of the Prime Minister, which I really thought that he was wearing that Dogra thing, and that was a very nice thing he was doing because he had promised those women that I'm going to wear this when I go to any place which is very cold. And that was in Kedarnath. Oh my God, the Congressies started trolling me. They started saying, does this dress means that a hunger index has come down? This selective outrage is something which I'm really tired of. And this is what is epitomized by organizations like The Wire. They are the judge, jury on everyone else. If you meet those journalists outside, most of them who work in Wire or contribute to Wire, who may have done only one story for Wire, last word in journalism. They will just the trash they write about it. It's so unfair, you know. I feel like telling them, "Dhoop mein khade ho jao na, ek din. Go and stand there from morning till night without even going to a loo, no water, no food. Then you teach me journalism." Anyway,
No,
that was my
absolutely.
angst. Now it's enough.
No, and then doing it for decades, like you've been doing it, Pallavi, it's not easy. I mean, you could have just parked yourself in one air-conditioned studio and spent the rest of your working life there now after the many, many years that you're still on the beat. It's nuts. But, and no one would blame you, frankly, for it because it's not an easy job. But you know, Sandeep, what happens to the Wire now? They were asking for money again. And I saw that like a lot more people were commenting on the fact that they were asking for money again than actually saying, yes, we want to support your journalism.
See, as I think it was whether it was Professor in the last show or somebody else commented that there is a whole core constituency of Wire who believe everything they say or would like to believe or would like other people to believe. They'll continue supporting them. Okay, all these people, without again taking names, they had a checkered past. But despite that, people trusted them when they came to Wire. A lot of the so they will continue. They will give some spin to this. That this has happened. There was even a larger conspiracy when Modi government arm twisted Mark Zuckerberg or Meta to disown the whole thing. Some story will go, and people will continue doing this. So there are people whom we within the so-called intelligentsia. There are a set of people who believe that every other paper, every other channel is feeding them. They are being controlled by the government machinery and doing a government PR. And so they would like to believe somebody who's taking a different stand. So there are these sort, and the money is certainly not coming from these crowdsourcing. They would be having sponsors, donors in whichever form. And unless some of those things people get into, they'll continue to get their support. But one of the backtracking, I presume, and just
I think it's going to be tough for them. They did do well. I mean, they started in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. They were one of the few digital media outfits that were, you know, straight off the bat on it and very clear about where they stand. Certainly, they did gather a following. But I found that during this episode, and it's not really an episode, really. It's more like God, it just tells you how fragile reputation is, isn't it? Because you can do a couple of years and then you have a story out like this, which is so widely criticized across the political spectrum, across the world. It's gone global. Your credibility coming back after this seems hugely unlikely.
well, people right through public memory is short. You know, as I was saying, some of these individuals had a past, but people seem to either forgive the past or forget the past. Those things keep happening. So, and you know, you do, as long as you find new sponsors, you will probably go and have a new avatar. Op India, which is very, very, I think, biased, they carried a very objective story on on the background of certain people in the Wire and not putting their point forward. They were quoting from other journals, other people who had said about the same individuals what was said. So it fits the pattern. If you see what they have quoted from those episodes, what some of their previous employers had to say and other
Right.
commented, there's a clear pattern between that kind of an approach or approach to journalism and what is happening here in Wire. So
But
they
you
had
know,
a
I
platform.
think their starts have also been different. See, Op India started off with maybe two or three people, and then they've grown. They've built on their you know, editorial team. They've hired more people. They've grown with the years. Now, Wire straight off the bat started off with these big ticket names, former editors, etc., etc., and then to crash like this is significant.
Yeah, absolutely. It is significant. So how they will sort of, reinvent or how they'll go about it. But I repeat, if they want to sort of brave it through this, and as long as their core sponsors don't withdraw support, if these people like that, whatever that's called, Independent Journalism Foundation or whatever, which is this Nandan Nilekani and other
Hmm.
people's that fund they've created for, and if some of them don't pull out, if they pull out as a matter of, as a moral assertion, or say that, okay, we are finding there is an integrity issue or whatever, then that's going to be a big jolt. If those people don't take a stand, which
Hmm.
which is the more, I think, to me, the more interesting question to watch out for. So, what does a Nandan Nilekani and Narayan Murthy's of the world, who have contributed into that fund,
Right.
which a lot of people have got their seed money from that organization, how are they going to react to this
Hmm.
thing? And nobody has
But they're
really
also,
questioned them.
to use a Gen Z term, they're also tech bros, right? And this story has really kind of resonated and traveled around in the tech world, especially. Uh, so
So
this
some
hits
of them
home.
have tried to grow above the thing, the tech bro, this, as if they are also custodians of the national conscience, and how. So they've tried to say that we have financed all kind of. So far, it's fine if they're saying they finance both pro right and pro left thing. But if there are integrity or ethical issues, whether they
Hmm.
still remain with them, that will be the question to watch. And I don't think too many people have asked that question as yet.
But, part of it could also be that big tech is very powerful, and they've gone for one of the big daddies. So the backlash that's even coming from their own, like, kind of leftist friends is very indicative. Pallavi, don't you find that interesting?
What, the backlash?
The backlash, the fact that that they've gone for big tech, and that's when people have sort of abandoned them, who were on their side, who were championing them.
But I'm telling you, I found it very surprising because in this WhatsApp group, I'm again going back, the ones who were trashing and attacking Wire were actually very angry because they said we had so much of belief in Wire and they've let us down. And mind you, they are still belonging, and interestingly, to the so-called left train of thought, the left liberal train of thought. They are those kind of journalists, and many of those journalists, a couple of them, I mean, two, three of them who were commenting, are also believed to be anti-BJP. Yet they were saying that what the Wire has done has actually made a mockery of the entire system and journalism, and they've really let us down because now any one of us or anyone who writes and starts questioning or positions their journalism as we are going to be questioning the government and we are going to be the voice and the conscience keeper, will always be now
Yeah, we'll have
held
to
under
face
a
this.
scanner. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there are
we'll
always
have.
going to be people now say, oh, I'm sure you're like the Wire. So it took time for Wire to fall like this. So I'm sure the others also must be a little worried now. And I'm not finding
No,
too many people now defending Wire. Those usual people who gloat over the Wire kind of journalism, even on the social media timeline, are quiet, including that famous fact checker who's Abhijit's friend.
Abhijit has a fact.
also,
I need to fact check
you,
that.
now, I think what Pallavi, what I think Advaita was obliquely hinting at, or even if she wasn't, I think this is something Professor touched upon last time. Some of the people of the same ilk who are taking on it is because they are also dependent on the big tech industry, guys, and they do not want to fall foul of them by taking side of where, because their own, to some extent, their strings are tied to those people, and so they would like to be on the right side of big tech.
Hmm.
If big tech go after them, also there is a problem.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's become evidently clear also. I mean, it's a one thing to take on big tech. It's another thing to find yourself in a situation where the facts are sort of, or the revelations are moving towards fabrication and not just getting your sources mixed up, or things like that. I mean, Pallavi, if I'm not mistaken, they're still standing by the story, are they, or have they sort of backed away from the story as well.
No. They pulled down the story. There's a statement
They
which has
pulled
been
down the
issued, I think,
story.
earlier in the.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
saying we're pulling off
It
the
was that they
stories
were
because,
stepping out.
yeah, because there's some developments which have taken place and some irregularities. Today's statement, which is made even worse, which is
Yeah.
actually triggered off that entire debate once again. Earlier they said there were
So they're-
irregularities. Now they're also saying that they're admitting that they had goofed up, and they had.
Goofed
They're
And
saying the
you're having
independent review.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now
independent
you're
review
having
found.
statements coming in. Yeah, you're finding statements coming in from those people who said we were never spoken to.
Yeah, exactly. That's the and what about the journalists who wrote the piece? Are they still with the Wire, or have they been let go?
So that
What?
I don't know, but I went into the DP. It doesn't mention Wire at all. So I don't think. I mean, if you're talking about Devesh Kumar, for example, who is associated with the story, he doesn't mention Wire anymore. I think it's also because see they have completely distanced themselves. Wire has distanced themselves from Devesh Kumar, and I understand why they're doing that. But where
But
does
there were
it
two
leave
writers.
Devesh? And
There was a Chanvi Sen and there was a Devesh Kumar,
Yeah.
right? There were two writers on the
Yeah.
piece.
And in one of their cases, it also mentioned, and I think it was a little unfair, saying that one of them had professional plus a personal relationship, which, I mean, the gossip is about Janvi. I don't know how far that's true, but that's the way it is.
Well, I mean, it's let's see. I mean, how they survive this. It's it's I can't use those terms, but it's a blank storm right now for them, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse, and no one's really looking out for them as far as this is concerned. So that's what it is right now. And what I think you're saying, Devesh Kumar, who started this whole BS himself, disassociates from the Wire. Oh, that's
His DP doesn't mention that.
yeah, that's
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
see, Jew is also saying,
Associated, or has the Wire kind of said thanks and goodbye? One doesn't know what's going on. But anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Do like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back sometime
and a
this
happy
week.
Diwali to all of you.
Yes, happy Diwali.
Thank you.
And Sandip,
Pallavi, there
post
is a
Diwali, keep your
complaint.
eyes open. What is the complaint? There is no complaint.
You and I speak over each other a lot. We must be more disciplined and well behaved.
No, and there are viewers who think you two are a couple as well. So please note the difference, the spelling between Ghosh and
Alveda, I'm
Ghosh.
going to tell you something.
Because they said, someone actually left a comment, why does Ghosh couple speak over each other? So I didn't want to correct that. I'd rather do it on live.
He's a poor old retired man who's got a jeans hovering around him. See? Piche. He's standing somewhere.
House in Nilgiri Hills.
And she's a Haryanvi Jard.
No,
Ghosh,
there's been a truce. There has been.
That's the only Bengali thing.
There's been a truce between me and Abhijit, and he thinks that I'm not that much of a Haryanvi as.
By the way, those asking why Abhijit is not there today, I asked him to join us, and he wrote back to me saying, "I'm in Faridabad." So I don't know.
What does it mean?
So
Pallavi, we
have internet. What's going on?
We are the three unfortunate people who don't have any Diwali. You at least attended a few very high-profile Diwali parties. You told us last week, and you were supposed to give us some gossip from there. Pallavi was supposed to share some.
So
gossip
Abhijit and Suhel were there. Abhijit and Suhel were there. The most badly behaved couple over there. You should ask them.
Why were they
you
badly?
Tell us what are the gossip you.
Abhijit was dancing. Can you imagine him dancing?
Yes.
Suhel was.
It got him in jail once. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that.
Suhel
I don't think I
was like
jail for dancing, but I know one person.
But everyone, let me tell you, before we go, at that party, most of the people I met were actually talking about your show, Adwaita. They were really talking. I mean, like at one point of time, No, at one point of time, me and Abhijit and Suhel were the stars because we three were standing next to each other. And even the waiter understood that because all the maximum prawns and chicken tikka was coming on our table.
But I must tell you, I got a compliment on our show from somebody who's a very doyen of journalism, a very serious journalism, and I can even probably take his name, TCA, TCA Srinivasan of Business Standard, who's
Wow.
been the father of. He says he enjoys the show. Only thing he asked me that is there some kind of a code you have other than bongs and dogs, no one else is allowed or something like that. I said, no, it's just a matter of coincidence.
I would love
I
to
met a
have him on the show.
Dude,
If
listen,
he'd like
I
to
met a
join us, we'd love
gleeful,
to have him on the show.
yeah. I met his gleeful Ratan Sharda, the Indian of the Year event, also Advaita. He was so happy and he was telling people, मैं Sunday club में आता हूँ. So someone just tells him कि आप इतना हंसते हो उस club में, ऐसे क्यों नहीं हंसते? I told him, see.
So anyway,
Angry man on TV.
I'm the gate
Okay.
crasher and the outsider, but thanks for at least calling me
Self-pitying is
occasionally.
starting.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself, Sandeep. Please stop feeling sorry for yourself. It doesn't move us. I'm not
We
giving
just
you
need
any
a little bit of encouragement, and then the wine fest will start. WHINE wine fest, by the way. Just to
Thank you. Thank
Not
you.
the
Okay,
food
thanks
fest.
very much.
Thanks,
See you.
everybody.
Happy
Happy
Diwali.
Diwali.
Okay.
Be
Happy
good.
Diwali
May we
to
all
all.
vanquish the demons in our lives.
Okay,
And
bye.
great year.
Now,
Thank you,
today is
everybody.
Bhoot Chaturdashi. Bengalis, we call it Bhoot Chaturdashi. You know that.
Maybe
Pallavi, if
that's
you
why
can explain.
Abhijit is in Faridabad.
That's why he's there now.
Okay, bye.
Anyway, okay, bye, bye.
Bye bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and see you soon. Happy Diwali.